So there are a bunch of people who have now come forward, a bunch of women who have now come forward and accused Mark Halperin of sexual harassment and or assault. Now, one of the problems is people conflating these two things because, I think this, as a society, we just need to be careful about what we call things for legal reasons. So sexual assault is where someone is legitimately threatening to commit battery on you, right? It's actually battery if someone grabs you against your will, but it is assault. They call it sexual assault if you are threatening to do that. So that is one thing. Sexual harassment is where I guess you're telling dirty jokes at the office. And sexual harassment, there's some fuzzy lines with regard to sexual harassment because you can tell the same joke to two women and one of them may take it offensively and another may not. Or a woman may hear the same joke from two men and one may tell it offensively and one may not. So sexual harassment is a little bit more fuzzy. There are certain things that are clearly sexual harassment, right? A guy coming up to a girl and telling her she has a nice ass, clearly sexual harassment. Not necessarily sexual harassment if a guy says a dirty joke just to a group of people and there's some women there, or if he says it to a woman and he had told the guy 5 minutes before. So, I just want to keep these distinctions in mind. What is not in question is that Mark Halperin is allegedly responsible, the NBC news reporter, that he is allegedly responsible for some serious sexual harassment / sexual assault. So in a new report from the Washington Post, a woman named Diana May alleges that she was sexually harassed by Halperin back in 1994 when she was a young researcher at ABC News. According to May, she had asked Halperin for help with a story, and he had her come into his office. Come over here, she recalled him saying, sit down and I'll give you the information. He then motioned to his lap. And she was shocked and wanted to refuse, but she considered how Halperin was a rising star as the political director at ABC News at the time and was a favorite of then World News Tonight anchor Peter Jennings. So not to injure her career, she reluctantly sat down on his lap, where she alleged that he was in full, we shall say that he was in full flight mode. She said that this routine occurred 3 or 4 times, leaving her confused, shaken, and ashamed. She said, I didn't know what to do. He was important. He wasn't my superior, but he was clearly in a superior position of mine. I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to at the time. I knew it was wrong. Another accuser, Emily Miller, has also come forward after the CNN allegations were published. He has been basically tossed out of the industry. His book was canceled. He was fired. Apparently, she suggested that she was attacked by Mark Halperin as well. She was once a producer at ABC News where Halperin spent a good portion of his career. So presumably, that took place when they were both at the network. And there's this is not the only allegation. There's another allegation from CNN. There's a woman at CNN who's a former producer, and she says that she was trying to interview with Halperin, and Halperin offered her a business card. She showed up. And she says, I don't quite remember what we talked about. I do remember him asking me to sit down next to him on the couch. This is during an interview. I thought it was awkward to sit on the couch when I was perfectly comfortable sitting in the chair across from his desk, but I complied, and I also remember him sitting a little too close to me. At one point, I felt a bit uncomfortable, and I stood up to thank him for the meeting. That's when he leaned in, tried to kiss me, and attempted to do a bit more. I didn't want to offend the man in charge of political programming at ABC News, and I tried to be courteous and apologetic and practically ran out of the office. She said that she finally landed a position at CNN on Larry King Live, and she said she would never book Halperin again as sort of her minor revenge on all of this. So one of the things that I think is worth asking here is why this seems so common in Hollywood and in the media at large. So I've already talked about the Hollywood values, the casting couch mentality, this idea that women are expected to sleep with directors and producers in order to get jobs, and the reality that many women do that in order to get jobs, or do that in convincing themselves that it's a fine thing to do when they're really doing it in order to get jobs. That's not putting the blame on the woman. That's putting the blame on the man and saying this is a system in which women have had to work, and many women have gone along with it rather than speaking up about it, which is clearly true on any objective level. One of the questions you have to ask is why this is happening so much in the media. And it appears to have happened to pretty much every woman in the media, right? Here's a panel from S.E. Cupp over on CNN, and here's a panel of women, and they basically all say that they've been sexually harassed.
I'm in this little room, and I put my ear in to hear him. And he says, welcome, Essie. I just want you to know I've been calling you C-Cup around the office. And I thought, you're an idiot. What an idiot. I'm mic'd, you're mic'd. You're saying this over on an earpiece. And I thought, okay, we're not even in the same location. And I'm pretty sure that was just sexual harassment. To sexualize a body part of mine, joke about it, where other people could hear it on my first day.
Okay, and all of these women told very similar stories. And these kind of things do happen a lot at media companies. I've worked with a lot of women at media companies who are in the talent side of the business. And because beauty is a commodity in TV, it just is. Okay, that's the way this works in the media. That means that there are a lot of men who think they can get away with saying nasty things to women about their body parts or about how they look. You know, again, there are certain people who, like, Alicia Krause is like a sister to me. So we make jokes with each other all the time. But I would never make jokes to anyone else because we're close friends. But Alicia has gotten sexually harassed by people who are at former companies, and she's told me about this, and it's very, very common. And one of the questions that you have to, here's Kirsten Powers making the same sort of claim.
You know, I've been harassed so many times I can't even count, and I don't come out and publicly talk about them, in large part because it's still true, I think, that most women feel, and I feel, that you will pay a price for it. And that when you look at the women who have come out, certainly in the media, the people who have made the accusations about against Roger Ailes, for example, really, I think with one exception, which would be Megyn Kelly, the rest of them haven't been able to be employed again.
And she's correct about this. So there are a few things that I think are worth saying about why this happens so much in the media, and also where is this fuzzy space, because there is a problem for women, okay? If you're sexually harassed in the workplace and you go to HR and it's a he said, she said situation, unless it's legally actionable, it makes it very difficult for anybody to do anything about it. Not all sexual harassment situations are legally actionable, even against the company, because remember, the standard legally for sexual harassment against a company or discriminatory work environment, a discriminatory work environment is not an individual guy sexually harassing you. It's the creation of an entire element, right? It's the creation of an entire business environment that is sexually harassing. That's what you can sue a company for. If a random guy works for a company and sexually harasses you, you couldn't sue Daily Wire if one person at Daily Wire sexually harassed a girl. You couldn't sue the entire company. You could report it to HR, and then HR would have a responsibility to look into it. But in order to meet the legal standard for suing the company itself, you would actually have to show a legally harassing environment that had been promulgated by the office. Now, in the media, there is something else that's happening, and it happens in religious institutions too. Very powerful institutions where people feel like they have something to lose are places where they are less likely to speak out. So I was talking with my business partner, Jeremy Boring, yesterday. Jeremy used to work in Hollywood a lot, and he took a lot of meetings in Hollywood. And he was telling me about one meeting he had with a studio head, where this particular studio head was talking about a particular actress with his female assistant in the room. And this studio head apparently said about the actress, you know, I'd bleep her. Wouldn't you bleep her? And he turned to the girl. And he said, wouldn't you bleep her? You know, if you had a bleep, wouldn't you bleep her? And they said, well, even if you didn't have a bleep, you would do this to her, and described a very graphic sexual act. And Jeremy said to me, you know, one of the things in Hollywood is that this is so common that it took him by surprise, because he felt like if I were in a Walmart boardroom, you know, the girl's name was Juliet or something, then this wouldn't be called Walmart anymore. This would be called Juliet Mart, right? If the head of Walmart had said that to Juliet, some assistant, this would now be called Juliet Mart. She'd sue him for sexual harassment, and she'd win, right? And she'd take the entire company away. But in Hollywood, it's super duper common. And that's because a lot of people are making this trade-off decision that it is not worth speaking up because they're afraid of the career ramifications. So that means that two things have to change. One is that we actually have to fight against a culture that suggests that women can't get jobs anymore if they accuse someone of sexual harassment or sexual assault, right? That definitely has to be fought. And you know, the point that is being made here by Kirsten Powers, that a lot of women who complain about this stuff are then blackballed, that people think they're a litigation risk, that's absolutely true. And that's why we have to have harder lines. We as a society have to sit down and decide what constitutes legitimate sexual harassment that is worthy of review, so that we can tell when a woman is actually complaining for the right reasons or when she's complaining because she's being oversensitive. You know, in 90% of cases, it'll be the right reasons. In 10% of cases, it may be because she's oversensitive. But the problem is that without any hard lines, it's very easy for people to shy away from it and just say, oh, she's oversensitive. I'm not hiring her. She's a litigation risk. Why would we do that? So the first thing that has to be done is we have to draw some hard lines as a society. And the second thing that has to be done is we have to determine, as a society, you know, we have to reevaluate what is worth subjecting yourself to in order to get ahead in a particular